I'm Sama Aweda. I'm the General Director of the Women Studies Center. I'm representing one of the oldest Palestinian women organizations. Actually, the Women Studies Center was established in 1989. It was established by a grassroots women organization at that time. And the idea was that such an organization is a Palestinian, secular, independent, feminist, non-governmental organization to protect and advocate for human rights in general and women's rights, and in enhancing the gender equality and in supporting women's rights as an integral part of human rights. The Women's Studies Center actually is based in Jerusalem, and we have 4 branches, one in Ramallah, one in Nablus, and one in Hebron, and the 4th one, of course, is the one in Jerusalem. We have 19 full-time members or employees and 32 volunteers. Of course, this number could be, sometimes it's raised, sometimes it's, but we have always volunteers, and we are happy to have these volunteers. Our vision actually is that the Women's Studies Center a just Palestinian society in which full equality based on gender justice prevails in a secular, democratic, independent Palestinian state that respects the freedom and dignity of human rights. And actually the idea of being a secular organization, now we're facing some attacks from the so-called religious parties in the occupied territories, because they think that all the organizations should be religious organizations and not secular organizations. So we've been attacked actually lately. I myself was attacked because we also support the CEDAW agreement, and this is part of why they are attacking us. Our mission is that we work to develop community awareness that guarantees equal opportunities for Palestinian women and prepare community leaders to take responsibility for that. So we believe in equal opportunities, and we do care that we should prepare leaders in the future to work also for this objective. We work, of course, with women in all their diversities, with a focus on marginalized and women survivors of violence. And when we talk about violence, we talk about social violence and political violence, because Palestinian women are facing the 2 kinds of violence. Violence because she's Palestinian, and violence because she's a woman, which is called gender violence. We work also with girls and boys, young women and men, people with disabilities, with a special focus, of course, on women with disabilities. We work also with decision makers, because we believe also in the power school of change, where in order to make a change in a society, the legislation should be changed so that it would take into consideration gender equality. So we work on with decision makers, and we work also in men and women in general. Our approach is evidence-based research and studies. This is, of course, has to do with the logical school of change, that in order to make a change, you have to convince people why such a change is required through studies, research, to show what is the situation now and why it should be changed. We work also, as I said, with lobbying and advocacy in order to change the legislations, even the curriculum at schools, because we believe also in the educational school of change, where we should raise the new generations with secular ideas based on gender equality in specific. We do gender audits. Actually, we was the first organization in Palestine to work on gender audits, and we did a lot of gender audits for non-governmental organizations, even for ministries. We did for 3 ministries until now, and we did also for private sector and in specific 2 banks where, and also with the municipalities in Palestine. We do work also with networking with civil society institutions, including governmental and non-governmental institutions. And we actually was the first organization in Palestine to work in gender capacity building that started in early 90s, where we had to go to London and prepare the first training of trainers in gender equality and started these programs. We work also in economic, social, and political empowerment of women. WC has a long established working relations with many of the NGOs working in the area of human rights and feminist movements in Jerusalem and the West Bank. And it's an active partner and member in a number of women feminist networks, such as the Arab Women Forum Aisha. Aisha was actually like the first Arab network women organizations. And we were elected 2 times for 8 years to be the general director of this network that is working in 8 Arab countries. Also, we're part of Al-Muntada. Al-Muntada is a Palestinian non-governmental coalition for combating violence against women. And this year also we were selected to host the Muntada. So the Muntada now is hosted by the Women Studies Center, and next year also will be. Our main programs, one of our programs is lobbying and advocacy program. The main projects under this program are the rights of the girl child. As I mentioned in the beginning, we do work on the educational school of change. So we work in schools, actually in specific with girls and boys, to re-establish their ideas about what are the rights of girls and what are the rights of boys. And we do work with the Ministry of Education. We have a manual that we created concerning these issues, and we have trained the social workers at the schools so that they can work in schools on this manual. We have an agreement that was signed with the Ministry of Education concerning these issues. And until now, we have published 14 stories for the children. These stories is part of how to teach them how to take care of gender equality and why it's needed. Unfortunately, lately we were under the pressure of, as I mentioned before, these stories were rejected by some Islamist parties who said that it's against religion, which is not at all. It only talks about how gender equality is very important. And we focus on, we had a campaign actually against early marriage for girls. And we advocated for raising the minimum age of marriage with other women organizations, and it was raised from 16 to 18. But unfortunately, the president gave the right to the judges to do some exceptions. And since then, many exceptions were did, and we are now fighting against these exceptions, that it should be explained what are the exceptions and how it's going to be dealt with. We work also on capacity building program. And the main program under this is Aman. Aman means safety. And we have this program also, we do work in schools with the cooperation and with the Ministry of Education, in which we go also to schools via the social workers, to train the social workers how to deal with the children, to raise their awareness about sexual harassment. What is sexual harassment and how they can protect themselves from sexual harassment. And in case they were exposed to sexual harassment, what can be done, where to go, where to talk about this experience. And this is a very important program. I tell you a success story. When I started to train the social workers, one of them was very restricted, and he was attacking me all the time, and he refused this program. After 3 years, he came to the office and he said, I want to see Sama. When he entered, he said, do you remember me? I said, of course I do. You were the one who was rejecting this program. He said, yes, excuse me, I'm coming today to tell you thank you for this program, because we had a big accident at school where suddenly family came to the school to attack the one who's in the canteen. And when we asked the police to come and they took us all to the police, the child came and he said, I told my family that he sexually harassed me.
Yes.
And they said, how did he harass you? He said, first of all, he told me, come in and you can take whatever you want without paying. And I remember that in the book, it was written that I should not accept anything without paying for unless I know why. So I asked him why. He pulled me. And I remember that it was written in the book that he doesn't have the right to pull me. I told him, please no, because it was written that I should shout. And when I shouted, he let me out. When I go home, I remember that I should tell my family, so I told them about what happened. So this social worker, he said, thank you very much. Now we believe that this is an important program. And we're very proud, actually, that the Ministry of Education has adopted this program and adopted all the materials we have produced and are using it in schools. The other program we have is the research and documentation program. And the main projects under this program are policy and legal research, so that to prove why change is needed, why such policies should be initiated, and legislation, and etc. The best practices of the Women's Studies Center, we can say that the holistic approach of research, providing evidence, education, awareness raising, and capacity development, and power through lobbying and advocacy, networking, and coalition building. Also, we should talk also about institutionalization of programs and knowledge with educational institutions, because now our programs, mainly two programs, a MAN program, which is about sexual education, and the campaign anti-child marriage, are adopted totally by the Ministry of Education, and they are using it in all the schools. And we have brought until now 14 books for children, and it's all adopted by the Ministry of Education, which is best practice. Also, participation and engagement of target group in decision implementing and evaluating projects is very important. And individual and collective social, economic, and legal empowerment to allow individuals and groups to become agents of change. Working with youth, males and females. We believe that in order to reach gender equality, you should work with both males and females, not only females. And to lead the change and prepare them to carry the torch and online the work. We have a program now which is to target the youth in the universities so that they will be in the future the agents of change. So we're working with both males and females university students. Engaging men and women, establishing relations with public and private sectors, as well as trade unions to expand the pro-gender equality and justice constituencies. Working with school children, as I mentioned earlier, as change needs time, and working with school students will help capture large numbers of adolescents and young adults to a very early stage in their development. Actually, we believe that working with the children now is very important, although it takes time to make the change, but it's in the future much better than letting them to be raised on other things. We have the program Women, War and Political Conflict, Palestinian women in the occupied Palestinian territories, and I should tell you that when in 2002 there was a massacre that took place in Jenin refugee camp, actually. We had to go directly to Jenin refugee camp to see what happened there. And I myself was able to go with European Parliament members who came to Palestine on individual basis. Actually, they were not sent by their governments, and they wanted to go to Jenin refugee camp, and I was asked to accompany them with another colleague. So we went there and we took them, and it was very difficult to see the women after this massacre, the bereaved women. Women who lost their houses, women who lost their children, women who lost peace, women who were just looking for the bodies of their family. So it was very difficult, and since then we decided to work with what we call bereaved women. And we started this program, which is Women, War and Political Conflict, in which we work with these women to help them to go back to their life, and to help them to continue taking care also of their families. We started in Jenin, and now we're working in 5 places: Jenin, Jerusalem, Bethlehem, Hebron, and Salfit and Nablus. In Jerusalem, we have a very special cases, actually, which has to do with arresting children in Jerusalem, home arrest. It doesn't happen in other areas in West Bank. It only happens in Jerusalem, where the Israelis would decide to put children to be arrested in their houses. And their mothers should sign that they will be taking care of them not to leave the house. And if they leave the house, the mother should pay a fee, a grant of money, and then the child will be taken into the prison. So the mothers are becoming, instead of being caring mothers, are becoming police at their homes. And this had damaged the relationship between mother and children, actually, because the children, they could not accept that their mothers are putting them in prison, that they cannot go to school, that they cannot go to play with their friends. So it is a very difficult situation, where in many times the children and their mothers have conflicts, and the mothers might let the child go to the street, and then he will be arrested, and she had to pay the fine of money. So we had to work with this project, in which we are trying to rebuild the relationship between the children and the mothers, where the children could accept that their mothers are forced to do that, and the mothers has to do some activities with their children, helping them to, at least if they cannot leave the house, that their friends could come to spend some time with them. We also encourage them to write their experiences, and we had now published the first book that was written by mothers and children about their experiences. So it's a very difficult situation. I know that it doesn't happen in any part of the world except in Jerusalem. Even in West Bank and in Gaza Strip, we don't have it. We do have it also only in Jerusalem. So in this program, we are trying our best to help the bereaved women to go back to their life again, help them to restart their life, especially those who lost their houses and they don't have a shelter to go to. So this is a very difficult program, and I have to tell you that our first visit to Jenin refugee camp, we had a Swedish friend with us. She's from a Swedish organization called Kvinna till Kvinna. And when she went back to her organization and asked them to fund this project, they had to go to SIDA, which is a governmental decision, and SIDA said, no, this is a political program, and we cannot fund it. So this guy who was with us in the refugee camp, she entered the parliament meeting and told them what she had already saw in Jenin refugee camp, and they all voted for funding this project. So since 2002 until now, we are working in this project, and we are very proud to help these women. But at the same time, we hope that this situation will end. Sorry, I'm late. Okay. Lobbying and advocacy work, as I mentioned, it has to do with changing the legislations to be more gender sensitive. The challenges that we are facing has to do with discrimination against women with the patriarchal society, backlash of extremist groups, as I mentioned, against feminist organizations and achievements in terms of women's rights, gender-based violence as a widespread phenomena, the COVID-19 pandemic also through the COVID-19 pandemic, we couldn't work directly with many women and we have to be at homes. Thank you very much, and I hope that you have a good idea about our work.
My name is Shadan Bustami. I am the director of FBS. I will thank all of you because you are here to hear us. And I thank Hèlia also for their invitation to explain our work and exchange the experience with you. Family Defense Society is a non-profit organization founded in 1994 as a small organization. It was led by a group of women and they are elected by the General Assembly of the Society. The FDS provides social and psychological support for violence and women and children in Palestine. She works with them in many programs. We have the first shelter in Nablus and in Palestine, and I think in the Arab world. It's to protect women faced violence in Palestine and threatened to be killed. We save nearly 70 to 80 women yearly from being killed in Palestinian society. And we have many programs that are aiming to combat violence against women and their children. The second program is the helpline, which provides immediate and social and psychological, also legal advice for women and girls and their children are facing problems. We have also the cultural and awareness program in villages and camps, marginalized areas, to increase their conscience towards violence in Palestine and to know their rights and know how to work with the violence man. We have another program, the economic empowerment for women. It's in cooperation with Hèlia. We are this program till nearly 7 years. It's a new program. We train them 3 main of careers: the hairdressing and the photography and the mobile maintenance, because these careers can be practiced by women in Palestine as a good work, and they can make their own work, and we help them after ending this training to find a work. Also, we make training for them to increase their conscience and to can face their problems and be stronger with their families. FDS is members in Palestinian Charitable Society Union, Palestinian non-governmental organization against domestic violence against women, Al-Muntada, which my colleague spoke about now. A Childhood Protection Network, Palestinian Network Children's Rights, Psychological and Social Support Team, Arab Network for NGOs. We have staff members, we have 16 staff members. 10 of them are working in the shelter with domestic violence women and individual advice and social and psychological. Also, we have self-care and health-care for all of these women. We train them the vocational training. They are working in small works inside the shelter, and we follow up them after leaving the shelter and continue working with them to make them stronger and to save their lives. Also, we have now we are planning to start a new program for newly married couples to increase their conscience and help them because the divorce cases are more increased. We have also graduation training and for the newly graduation students from the two universities, the Al-Najah and Open Jerusalem Universities in Nablus. They are training in our society and we help them to enter the work and some of them are working as volunteers in the society. We have almost 30 volunteers and we train them well to can work after their end their trainings. We are working towards combating violence in the Arab world in Palestine and especially in Nablus area and around its villages and camps to increase their conscience towards violence and can be strong to face their problems in their families. The staff members is well trained. We make also capacity building for them and retreats to debrief their bad feelings from being working with domestic violence and hard cases. Thank you very much for your attention.